Good morning. The story I'm going to read to you today is called Good Night Owl, and it's written and illustrated by Greg Pizzoli. So the same person is the author and the illustrators. We know he must be really talented if he can write the words and draw the pictures in this book. So in Good Night Owl, I want you to try and make a guess. We call that a prediction too. A prediction about what's going to happen to this owl. As the story goes on, the owl is trying to figure out who's making a noise, and I want you to try and figure out and make a prediction. Who's making the noise? This is Good Night Owl. Owl was settling into bed when he heard a noise. Squeak! It was a tiny sound, no louder than a whisper, a funny noise he hadn't heard before. "Someone must be at the door," said Owl. "Just a minute." So again, you're trying to figure out who's making that squeaking noise. But no one was there. "Probably the wind," said Owl. And he lay down in bed and said to himself, "Good night, Owl." Squeak! Then he heard the noise again. I have a feeling you might have done a good job at predicting where that noise is coming from. "It's coming from the cupboard," said Owl. So he went to take a look. This is the cupboard right here. He emptied every shelf, but there was no noise to be found. He's making a really big mess, isn't he? So Owl went back to bed. "Good night, Owl," he said. I know if you're doing a good job in trying to make a prediction, you see the thing that's making that noise is still hiding, isn't it? And then he heard the noise. Squeak! "It must be under the floor," said Owl. And he pulled up the floorboards one by one. So look at that. He's taking his floor apart, trying to look for whatever is making that noise. But he didn't find the noise. So Owl went back to bed. Squeak! "This house has a noisy roof," yelled Owl. Poor Owl's getting so upset he can't sleep and he doesn't know what's making that noise. And he took down the roof. He takes the roof off his house. "There," said Owl, "no more noise." Owl got back into bed, the stars and the moon shining down where his roof used to be. "Good night, Owl," he said. Look at his house. But Owl didn't close his eyes. He didn't dare. He knew that any second he would hear the noise. He waited and waited and waited and waited. Squeak! "It's in the walls!" Owl screeched. What's he gonna do? Can he take his walls apart? I guess he can. "I'll get you, noise!" Owl said as he tore down the walls of his house. Can you believe the owl tears his house apart? But he found nothing. The cupboard was empty. The floorboards were pulled up. The roof was pulled up and the walls were gone. Owl went back to bed and he said, "Good night, Owl." And then he saw the noise. Squeak! Owl smiled. He said, "Good night, noise." And they went to sleep. So as I was reading, your job was to try and make a prediction, a guess. What was making that noise? What was making that squeak? See if you can tell a parent what animal was making that noise. I hope you enjoyed my story. Good night, owl.